Hey guys, Joshua Meeks here with B&W Real Estate. Today we are looking at the MREA Economic Business Planning Model. Now this is something that's pretty common language in real estate, whether you're at Keller Williams or not, for evaluating what your economic goals are for business planning, either for the next month or the next year. Right now we're going to do it as a projection for the following year, what goals might look like. We're going to use really round numbers and kind of round some things off just to make sure that you can kind of get the hang of this video and this model to be able to understand the economic model, not only for this year, but for future upcoming years, so that you can watch it over and over again. And we'll make sure that you also have a supplement for the full MREA economic budgeting model, so that you can make sure, not just for this video, but on a scaled worksheet that you can evaluate and reevaluate what your goals might look like for this year and the years that are coming up for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. So starting out, the first goal is to evaluate what your goal is as far as how much money that you'd like to bring home. Now again, we're going to use really round numbers, and for the sake of this video, we'll talk about taxes at the end of the video. And if you have any questions about it throughout it, feel free to pause, write them down, reach out to us directly, and make sure that you have an opportunity to process those things. But first things first, we're going to use just kind of some round numbers. Starting out, we're going to say if you would like to, we're talking big goals here, starting out simple, $100,000, you want to net $100,000 in real estate. If that's your goal, we're going to look at what that looks like. So first step, we're going to use this board to write on. We're going to move maybe just one of these to the side and say, all right, starting big timers, you want to make $100,000 in real estate. Your first consideration as an independent agent would be, what are my cost of sales? Usually 29.2% of all my income. What are the expenses for the company? Usually 29.2% of that. But what you're going to look at specifically as somebody on a team, because you don't have to worry about those because the team is paying for the majority of those costs for you, is simply what is the team split, and then of course knowing at the end of the year how much of that goes towards Keller Williams as a final deduction with your taxes. And so for the sake of this, you want to make $100,000. The first step is to say, if we're not looking at the cost of sales, right, that's not an expense for you. We are not looking at the company expenses because signs, cards, marketing, all that stuff, lead generation, revenue, websites, database management, all that's covered by the team. So those things are considerations for the point of this. But what we are going to look at is the very first step is saying what is going towards the team and what's going towards me as an agent. So if you would like to make $100,000, what we're going to do, and I'm just going to do it on my phone as we're together here, is we're going to say, if I want to make $100,000, you're going to divide it by 0.6. So as a B&W real estate agent, likely you're making 60% of the deals that you are working with clients on, and that means we're going to take this $100,000 and that we are going to divide that number by 0.6, which is 60%. The number that we get for that is $166,667, essentially. Suddenly that round number of $100,000 is not so round, but it's okay as we're going to go over it together. Hopefully these numbers will be ones that will be second nature and just really simple for you over time. So that's the very first step. This is your team, right? Considering that because you're not paying these things, what you are is paying the subsidized amount towards the team. That brings you to $166,667. So the next step is going to be evaluating how many buyers am I serving and how many sellers am I serving. Now within our specific team dynamic, there's a huge incentive for serving sellers, because whether or not you're actually the one negotiating with that seller, the team split is the same. That means that whether you are serving a buyer, showing them homes, out there beating the pavement, writing offers, negotiating contracts, or you're just simply bringing a listing over to the team, as of right now, the current model is that you're getting 60% of that no matter what. So what you're going to look at is you're going to say, okay, how many sellers do I want to serve and how many buyers do I want to serve? It's a cost-benefit analysis because, of course, buyers are probably going to take a lot more time for you, whereas sellers might be a little harder to get for some people, but you're not going to have to spend quite as much time serving them. So say you say, I want to serve, 70% buyers and 30% listings. So then basically what you do is you take the $166,667 and we're going to times it by 0.7. And that's going to be the amount of buyers that you're serving. So you're trying to, this year, hypothetically, looking at trying to bring in $116,000 gross commissions from buyers, and then times, we're going to do 166,666 times 0.3 means you want to bring in right about $50,000 in commissions from sellers. Now, the next step that's crucial to figure out is how much commission percentage on average are we making per transaction. Now, in Washington State right now, we're somewhere between 2.5% to 3%, so we're just going to average it out and say on average we're looking at 2.5%. Now, if you have the opportunity to make more percentage than that on average, that's great. If we're going to do an average home price sale estimate of $330,000, so keep in mind, if you end up selling a home on average $500,000, that could significantly impact the amount of homes that you have to sell. If the homes that you're selling are 50% more expensive, then the amount of homes that you have to sell are about 33% less based off of that economic model. So we're going to look at this $50,000 right here, and we're going to say 50,000 divided by 0.0275. And that means when you divide this number by 0.0275, for sellers, that looks like you are closing around $1,818,181. And that's the amount of sale volume that we would call it in real estate. So that means if you sell $1.8 million house, the sellers are taken care of. If you sell six $300,000 houses, it's the same amount, if the commission remains the same. Now on the buying side, you're trying to bring in more for buyers because it's an active buyer's agent. If you're specifically working with buyers, that might be your focus. 116,666, again, divided by 0.0275. That's the amount of average commission, and that puts you at $4,242,400. So this is the amount of volume, of sales volume that you're trying to close for the next upcoming year. Now, the next step to take into consideration is the amount of clients that you close is not going to be the amount of clients that you're actively working with. The amount of clients that you're actively working with is not going to be the same as the amount of clients that you had to sit down and have appointments with. Now, there's a conversion ratio based off of if it's listings or buyers, bringing them from an appointment or a consultation to an active client, and then bringing them from an active client to a closed transaction, or what we would call it maybe even a VIP or a brand champion of the PNW real estate team at that point. Now, for the sake of simplicity, we're going to average those numbers out and say it's about a 75% conversion rate from bringing somebody from a listing or buying consultation to an active seller or an active buyer, and then about a 75% conversion rate also bringing them from an active seller or buyer to a closed transaction. Now, what that looks like is that means that from this point, what you're going to have to evaluate is, well, first step first, let's look at the average real estate transaction. It's going to be around $330,000 in this market in Pierce County, even averaging out if you're expanding out Thurston, King, some other counties throughout the area. What we have to look at is if you want to close sellers $1.8 million, 1,818,181, we're going to divide that by the amount of the average transaction, which is currently $330,000, and then we're going to round that up to the nearest half. So actually, as of right now, that's about 5.5 transactions on the selling side. For the buying side, if you're looking at $4,242,400 divided by, again, $330,000, you're looking at about 13 transactions. That means that for the next year, what you're trying to close in order to meet your goal of grossing $100,000 in commissions is that between the 13 transactions for the sell side and the 5.5 transactions, 13 of the buy side, 5.5 of the sell side, that's a total of 18.5 transactions that you're trying to close. It's a good number to keep in mind as you're progressing. Excuse me. In order to close these, what we're going to say is that we're going to average a 75% conversion ratio. That it's only 75% of the people that you get under contract or that are active might actually turn into a closed client. And so, again, we're going to do that on both sides. 5.5 sell transactions that are closed. We're going to times that. Sorry, we're going to divide that by 0.75. And that means 7.3, we'll just round it up, 7.5 that are active on the sell side, and 13 transactions have to be closed on the buy side. That is, again, divided by 0.75, about 17.3. Actually, we'll wait to round those up too. About 7.3 and about 17.3. But we're going to do that one more time because remember, there's also a conversion rate between appointments that are initially established, so people that you sit down at this table with or wherever else, coffee shop, your home, their home, and talk about, hey, do we have the opportunity to serve you? You might not get every one of those clients that you sit down with to become an active buyer or seller. So we're going to, again, do a conversion rate of 7.3%, sorry, of 7.3 transactions divided by 0.075 is 9.73, so we're just going to round this one up to 10 appointments. So that means 10 seller appointments for the following year. The next number is 17.33 divided again by 0.75 means that you would have to have 23 buyer appointments. Now, again, the reason that this is so critical to start out here, figuring out what is my big goal, is that we want to make sure this is also connected to your big why. Maybe you don't want to make $100,000, and that's perfectly fine. But the goal is to say, how much do you want to make the following year? And let's tie this to my big why. If I do gross $100,000 in commissions, what does that do for me? What does that do for my family? What does that do for my business? What does that do for my family or my goals for the next 1, 3, or 5 years? If all we're trying to do is make money for the sake of making money, that's not really very exciting. At least it's not for me, and I think it's probably not very exciting for you either. But tying what you want to make to why you want to establish those financial goals or objectives for the following year hopefully makes getting these appointments so much easier every day. So that being said, if you want to make $100,000, that's looking at 70% of those clients being buyers, 70% of those clients being 70% of those clients being buyers, 30% of those clients being sellers. That means you need to have 10 listing appointments or 10 appointments that you refer over, 10 referrals for the listing specialist and the team to go to that you're able to make decent money from, and then 23 appointments for the buy side. Now, with that being said, keep in mind, if you are looking at making $100,000, what you do need to consider is the Keller Williams current split. As a buyer's agent, I believe is about $11,000. So if you subtract that from $100,000, that means that's actually about $89,000. And we also would definitely encourage you to set aside about at least 25% of the money you make towards taxes. Because what we don't want to do is for you to make all those commissions and then at the end of the year have Uncle Sam coming back and not be prepared for that. So the benefit of making a lot of money is that you get a lot of money. The disadvantage is that you cost a lot of money in taxes. Is that it will cost a lot of money in taxes. So times 0.75. Again, this is the final number at $89,000 after taxes. So we're talking $66,750 in your pocket after tax, splits, expenses, everything. That's about $5,000 a month. And here's what I would encourage you to do. Say, if I have $5,500 a month, if I had $5,500 more a month in my pocket, how does that connect to my big why today? How does that impact my life? How does that impact the quality of my life, my budget, my expenses, my lifestyle? And hopefully, whatever your goals are, there's a why that we can help you connect with, or that even your own family might be able to help you connect with, to hold you accountable to make this happen. Now, maybe $100,000 is not your goal. Maybe you're not trying to net $66,000 next year. Maybe you're only wanting to net $30,000, or maybe you're wanting to net $200,000. Whatever your goal is, my objective, my hope is that we can help keep you accountable for that goal. We can help create a business plan for that goal. We can help remind you of your big why for that goal. Now, we can be here to support you, encourage you in that entire process, and to make it a lot less stress by having an entire team that's working on your behalf to help make this a lot simpler. If you have questions on this, feel free to reach out anytime. We'll also be sending off a full PDF of the MREA economic business model for reference. You might choose not to read any of it, depending if you're a DISC, what type of personality that you might be, or you might just choose to watch it in fast forward mode and then ask me if you have any questions. Hopefully this is helpful as you're planning the next year's goals, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks for watching.